Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So Rajesh, he's a seasoned professional in the telecom industry, and he's worked for companies like Nokia, Ericsson. And then in 2007, he founded mCarbon, which is a value-added services for the telecom industry companies. And since then, he's been working in mCarbon only, and it's doing pretty well. And
yeah, I'll explain the definition of well. It is all relative. So different people have different different connotations to that word. Some say that I mean, I was thinking that what should I share as an entrepreneur. So some people think it's very cool to be an entrepreneur. So what is this cool thing? Let's sort of declutter that. It's a very one thing which I've realized in the last 6 years, not just having found mCarbon, but I've the last 6 years, more importantly, dealt with a lot of, and I happen to have a lot of entrepreneur friends, and also meet and try and mentor a lot of wannabe entrepreneurs. And I think one thing which kinds of cuts across everything, this whole DNA of entrepreneurship, is that it is a marathon. So you get extremely lucky if you feel that, let me just tick off this bucket list, I want to be an entrepreneur, and then figure out, okay, fine, did I tick mark it or not? But I think it's a lot of work, not just tick marking it, but actually this is just one step. It's like a long marathon. The moment you hire your first guy, the moment you hire your 10th guy, the moment you hire your 100th guy, the story needs to be retold with gutso. It's not a full stop anymore. And numbers, valuations, they come along the way. I mean, it really is not important. Yeah, I mean, if you have a financial investor in, then of course it's good to have some milestones, good to have a little objective. But I think it's fun when you start enjoying the journey and not really worry about the destination. It will come along, at least that's been my experience. So I hope that's a good start, introduction to this wonderful journey.
So Rajesh, what we do is we generally like to get to know you, and we start off by asking you, just tell us about your childhood days, your growing up years, your schooling, your college, your family.
Okay, I grew up in a state called J&K. I'm a Kashmiri, and my schooling was in Jammu, essentially. And I'm a very regular, I'm not a college dropout. I haven't I haven't studied in IIT, so I'm not an IITian either. But I always used to wonder that maybe someday entrepreneurship actually is a very great leveler. One great thing about being an entrepreneur and being on your own is that it sort of levels it beyond a certain time. When you pass out from whatever degree college that you are, but when you start building companies, creating value, it sort of levels up. It doesn't matter what your background is. You got to have a little bit of maturity of thought, enormous amount of passion, and then just take it forward. Now coming back, so my schooling was from a private school in Jammu, and I studied there till 12th. Then I did my engineering. So I think like everybody else, there was a lot of hoopla about getting into IIT and stuff. So I thought that let me also try that. So I also tried half-heartedly, I would have to admit. And I was thinking that then it suddenly struck me that and I was told that if you mug up or cram these 20 books, you might possibly get into an IIT or thereabouts. So I halfway gave through that idea. I said, no, I don't want to do that. Something struck me, I don't know why. So I just, and there was a lot of pressure from the family, to be well read in that sense. Even if you were a rebel of sorts, which I think I am, and I was always been, but I think they said that you want to do at least an engineering degree. So that sort of, from parents' point of view, that was a tick mark. So I said, okay, fine. So I ended up doing my engineering from University of Pune, and I was in Nasik for 4 years. And yeah, I have a younger brother. Grew up in Jammu all along, and then straight away to Nasik, 4 years at University of Pune. And again, now if I look back and say that what did I really study and what am I really applying is completely different. And I'm going to talk about one of those things which really intrigues me now as an entrepreneur is changing the education system and where is the opportunity there. And it enthralls me a lot, right from the K-12 education, and I'm actually mentoring a couple of companies in that field as well. How do I change, which makes a large social impact? as opposed to just making some money and building some value along the line. And changing an education system, for example, while you build multiple companies is a Herculean effort, right? I mean, it is not small. It is almost in our DNAs, the way these education system has been built in India. It is rote education versus what is practical. How education is viewed as learning as opposed to templatized education that we are forced down our throats, irrespective of the college. But it has improved now, but I think it has to change from the grassroots level. That is where the whole value comes. So yeah, I mean, that's my schooling, college. Then I found my first job in a very interesting company that, so this was 96, 97, a consulting company based out of two telecom giants, Telia of Sweden, and there was KPN of Netherlands, which is another PTT of Telecom. So they had a joint venture, and I was fortunate enough to work in that joint venture company as a consultant, junior consultant, because I was fresh. But it was a very small team, so it allowed me to actually see, we did quite a few joint ventures. The first one was with WiproNet at that point in time, the first ISP, because this was pre-telecom and ISPs were very hot. I had the privilege of working with Dishnet Wireless, the first ISP. I partially wrote the business plan and also the go-to-market plan, because a lot of these consultants were coming from outside of India, because India was not very known for such rollouts, heavy rollouts. I was part of that team, so I learned the ropes there of business, marketing, what goes into the business on a theoretical level, I would say, because these were blueprints, basis what the businesses were meant to be rolled out, and that was it. And then a couple of years, I couldn't understand that, okay, fine, I've learned this, now what do I do? How do I apply this? Then, a typical bookmark, I went to Ericsson for a couple of years. Let me understand what Ericsson is, and I was posted in Sweden as a product manager. This was 97, 98, and I learned about micro payments in those years. They were far ahead of time, what now we are talking about, but there were no takers, right? So it was based largely on an R&D project by Ericsson. Learned back, and again, I was trying to find my footing. Then interestingly, 2001, when I got married, so we shifted to Bombay, and a startup picked me up, and they wanted to see that if I wanted to join a startup. So my third job, when I was about 6 years of experience in that corporate life, I joined a startup, and I think that was a dramatic shift in my thought process of what a startup can do. And it was in Bombay and away from Delhi, so I think it was a good exposure. I joined them as product manager again, but being a startup, you end up doing all kinds of things. So I had a global exposure again. I was doing sales, biz dev, all kinds of things, again in telecom. Then came back to Delhi, worked with a couple of other companies, been in Nokia for Nokia Siemens, which is now Nokia Networks. Then a Bharti company called Bharti Telesoft, which is now called Comviva. It was recently acquired by Mahindra. Yeah, and then 2007, a friend of mine and ex-colleague, etc., we decided that, let's do something different. Again, at that point in time, we did not really know what that different could be. But I think one thing was very sure, that we smell a lot of opportunities and a lot of lacuna in the space that we were operating in. And we thought, hence, that is an opportunity. So I think that led to creating what mCarbon is today. And it's been our 6th or 7th year of operation, and about 140 people, and doing interesting stuff. Venture funded, we've done some check marks, but I think I get goosebumps when I look at the opportunity around, not just telecom, but overall, because wherever there are problems, I smell opportunities. And I see the enormity of the size of business that you can create in India, forget about outside of India. And I'm very pro all of this, in fact, what you guys are doing. That's like a long and short of.
So was it Bombay that got you into the entrepreneurship?
I would have to admit, partially yes, but I always used to wonder that, what is called as reason the antra, or what is your reason of existence?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? What are you trying to build? But I think it's important also, unless you are extremely lucky or you think you've jumped on an interesting idea that will turn the tides overnight. Otherwise, if you're building large businesses and more B2B businesses, and I'll delve upon both sides of the things, because some of you might want to be entrepreneurs or are entrepreneurs. You know, depending on what you want to do, and depending on that enormity of that size, you can start. And if you are building a B2B business, then my recommendation is to start after doing a lot of due diligence of how you want to sell to the customers, the first customers, the second customer, the 10th customer, and how do you want to replicate and scale the business. If you're doing B2C, which is creating a brand app, then you're pretty much on your gut and, you know, small need. It's the construct of the business is very, very different in both the cases. In our case, we were very clear that we were wanting to build a B2B brand or B2B business or a product company. So it was very different. So yeah, to answer that point, Romeware did trigger some point of entrepreneurship, because it was a valley-based company. It still is. So I saw them very up close. I had the opportunity to interact with a lot of these VCs there as part of, because I was a very early hires. Yeah, so that did trigger many of such questions that, you know, where is this super culture and where we are, and the whole pace of working in a smaller setup versus larger setup. And, you know, 98, 99, Ericsson was a very big brand.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to leave a very large brand, very good salary, and just do a little experiment. And I would say 99, 2000 or whatever, that was not a great year for entrepreneurship. I mean, people were very happy taking a nice plush job and get some salary and, you know, jazz up their CVs a bit. Yeah.
So it was Bharti Telesoftcom, we were where you met your co-founder Bridge.
That's correct. We were colleagues, and our philosophies met, and we said, kuch to karna hai. So we said, okay, let's delve it further.
Okay, but in between you went to Nokia as well.
Yeah, so you know, we met and we said that we want to do something, but we were not very sure. So that is again a point that, you know, we wanted to jump, and we were clear that what we wanted to build, but we were not very clear that what is that we want to build. And it was not let's just do it for the heck of it. You know, many people do it, let's just do it, and then realize, oh, where have I stumbled upon, or where have I stuck, or whatever. Then you think and they come back. So we said that, okay, fine, we want to do it, but unless we are very clear, we will do it. So it was running in back of our mind. So when we joined, I would say that my Nokia stint was more of a parking lot in that sense. While it was all happening in the background, and Nokia in those days were doing very well. On the phone side, it was number one, commanding almost 80% market share. I clearly remember. This was 2003-04. I mean, clearly way ahead than any of those. And even on the network side, the Nokia networks piece was also doing very well. It was number 2 after Ericsson, but doing fairly well. So again, a large company, you know, I was doing a lot of people management, a lot of customers. There was no challenge, right? I mean, there was no challenge day to day stuff. And I was coming on from a very aggressive background in the past, and coming to a very large organization, and a lot of things taken care of. But I thought, what am I really doing? What will happen? Okay, fine, you give another 5-10 years here, go up the ranks. But what is the challenge? This you can do any time.
Right.
So that was the time when we actually thought that, okay, fine. I think one day we thought that, okay, next 3 months we're going to do it. I think having said that, we just counted the days, and it was in August of 2007 when we actually just quit.
So before quitting, you had some sort of plan ready?
Yeah, some sort of plan ready, that what we are trying to build. We had, as I said, we had identified the opportunities. We had not identified, I'd be honest, I mean, everything was not cut and dried. We did not meet any there was zero mentorship, zero. I mean, honestly speaking, in fact, when I jumped on this entrepreneur thing, I told my parents. My wife knew it, obviously, and she was helpful through and through, but my parents knew it almost after 3 years. So they couldn't even comprehend what was this. They thought, okay, it's a big company, would have gone to a second small startup. Fine, it happens, right? I mean, they're paying him well, I'm sure. So
3 years they didn't get to know the.
So I said, fine, no news is also good news sometimes. Ignorance is bliss. And then finally, I think they came to know, okay, you're now a partner or whatever, and they said, fine, I think it depends on the culture that we are in, and I think things have changed now. You know, it's very cool for people to, you know, young kids to now, or college grads in that sense, to, you know, consider joining a startup straight down the college. I mean, it's not a taboo in that sense. People wouldn't say that, okay, what are you doing? And which is good. I think that is a stepping stone. I see that change in the next 10 years or so, again, proliferating. And I would be surprised many people say that, okay, I don't even need a college degree now. You could have, you know, Steve Jobs or any of, you know, those Microsoft examples doing Indian rounds as well. Because you have, I think what excites me all in all is the large amount of consumer base in this country and the opportunities that exist because of lack of some of those basic things. And that is where the opportunity is. Even if you say that, let's not talk about, we talk about 500 million of addressable base in any sector. I'm talking sector agnostic right now. Consider whatever India's population is, 500 million people, and if you're servicing them with a product or an idea, whether it is B2B, to C or B2C, and consider the 500 million people giving you some sort of money every month or every instance, do the maths. I think there is a lot of value for a lot of people. Real value. I'm not talking about valuation. I'm talking about real dollar numbers. A lot of people play on valuation, but I'm talking about hard cash. Because all of us like services. And,
so when you started out, what was your first product? Because I understand your first client was Airtel.
Yeah. So our first product in the very basic form was called as Call Manager. So this was again 2008. This was again very telecom specific product where you could block and unblock anybody's calls. If somebody, it's like a telemarketer pestering you or a person pestering you. So it was a very interesting application that we developed where you could block and unblock anybody's call and whitelist and blacklist. And also it can schedule your calls. Like I could put my phone in a situation like a meeting, driving, roaming, whatever profile, and you know, you could, the caller gets to know all of that, the state of the called party. And it is a very cool application. It was not dependent on any of the smartphones. So the app version has come out now because now the smartphones are there, but it used, I mean, the good thing was it was a mass market product. But again, it was published or marketed by a telco, like in Airtel, for example. So
how did you manage to get Airtel as your first client?
So yes, so interesting thought. Again, you know, and this brings to my other thought that I mentioned. When you're building B2B, then you got to do a little bit of more of a homework. The cost of you know, or the acquisition cost in that sense, or acquisition of your customer is an important thought. So we had existing relations with Airtel as individual capacities, both me and my co-founder. Both of us had worked with them in our previous avatars, whether it was Comviva, Bharti Telesoft, even Nokia. You know, Airtel was a customer. So there were people who knew us. Now, of course, the business card that we had, our names printed on, carried very different logos, but they knew us, right? I mean, so when we came and we said that, and we had carried, I would say, a goodwill is important. You can't burn bridges once you are servicing or whatever. It's a very small world. You don't know where, especially in B2B. B2C, you can afford to be a completely contrarian to that thought, you know, I don't care a shit about all of this, but, you know, let me just build a brand. If people like it, they will like me. They have no choice. It's almost very arrogance that plays in a B2C. But B2B, you got to play through the ranks. And when you're dealing with large companies, they do all the due diligence. They do all of that. Besides your goodwill, that will at least get you past. So that helped. That helped cracking the first deal, I would say. But I mean, that just helped us through the process. But again, the process was evaluation. There were 3-4 competition, larger companies. We were 3 months old, technically, very limited cash, lot of passion, lot of can-do attitude. But you know, it was like Drid Nishchay, Pakka Irada, and Maa Ka Ashirwad. You know, that is what we had.
Maa ko to bataya hi nahi.
Maa ko bhi nahi pata tha. So, but yeah, we were working on that.
So, but when you started out, was it a 2-man team, or you put together?
So we were essentially a 2-man team, essentially. But then, yeah, we did hire, and again, the first hires or first few hires were very important because we couldn't promise them anything, right? And we did not have, our first office was based out of a guest house, and the techies and the back end was, so we, another good friend of ours, they had a company in Noida, and we had leased out a small space within there. We culled out a little area for us. So 7, 8 of us used to sit there, code and to use common spaces, etc. And that's how we at least start.
But so what was your business model with Airtel? How did you make money out of this particular?
So this particular product, which I mean, our business model has also changed over time. This one was revenue sharing, where we had to put in all the money initially, and Airtel would market and sell it to the customers, and whatever money that they get and collect as from the revenue shares, etc., they would give a piece of that action to us.
And then you started out with the value-added services. So at that time, voice, data, SMS.
Voice, data was hardly known at that point. It was very voice and very SMS driven. Now, last 2 years, SMS is almost gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wiped out because of OTT plays like WhatsApp and thereabouts. Data is predominant. Apps have come in. All that has, I mean, you know, business has taken a totally different shift in the last.
You had caller tunes and all those stuff earlier. That's all.
Yeah, caller tunes, I would say they're still there as a service. But you know, that is my point. You know, people have moved beyond that. And to be honest, I mean, we have about 15 people sitting here, but none of us probably would be subscribed to caller tunes.
Right. Yeah.
So so here is an opportunity. When I say that, okay, what kind of services will be liked by all of us, people like us, I could hardly see any. You know, there are no hands up. So I said, okay, fine. So here is an opportunity. What do I like? So I think if you try and unravel that, that is a big opportunity I'm talking about. Segmentation of consumer insights and segmentation of these services. So I think that's the business model changed overnight, over years, and we had to, you know, reinvent, of course, a lot of these things. We cannot have just been on the same track anymore.
How did you go about that process? I think it was coming off the Apple iPhone.
I think Apple definitely triggered it. One, I think Apple clearly triggered the smartphone revolution, I would say, and so did Android to a certain extent. But I think the app ecosystem clearly was iOS's you know, clear monopoly there. I think they just introduced it so beautifully that everybody else followed.
Right.
And I think the biggest, you know, change that I saw in the, you know, was in the consumer itself. So I'm trying to understand the consumer psyche. While you're building the products, if you're building it for your product, for your consumer, it's very important to know the mood of the consumer every time. That's why I said, you know, if you are there for a longer haul, then you want to say that, okay, this is the time when consumers are trying this, and now after 6 months, you never know, because there will be competition trying to do, once you introduce a service, there will be 5 people doing the same thing. How do you differentiate and continue innovation along the path? So I think it's very important to know the consumer mood every time that you are engaging with them. And in this case also, people started moving to data and everything, and we thought that let's go into a data mode as well. So now we're building a great app. I think it will be launched now in a few weeks time, and it will be renamed in a very different new avatar, and with very interesting morph on data, how the app is going to look like. Because if consumer is consuming through an app, let that be the primary interface as opposed to any basic interface.
So now you're completely into app building, or there's certain other B2B
No. So we
products?
are not into app building, but app is just like an interface for us. So we do high-tech technology stuff, which so most of it is switching software. We build products in an area called as usage and retention, UNR, which is very commonly known in telco parlance, and life cycle management. Now these are very interesting terms, because if you see operator ecosystem, pretty much everybody has mobile phones. So I think the question is not about acquisition as importantly as about retention as well as engagement. How do I get them to spend more? So if you're spending $50, how do you spend 100 from the next 3 months? So where would you spend that additional $50? So I think, and that the consumer wallet has been eyed by various other people now. Earlier it was only a telco. Now there is Google eyeing it. There is a WhatsApp eyeing it. There is somebody else eyeing it. There is a Zomato eyeing it. So imagine the kind of ecosystem shift that it has created. Unless you are very clear about the intrinsic value of the customer, where he or she is spending, and how you are changing different services along the line. And that has been a transformational step for us. like I like to quote an example, which probably many people in this room would not know. We give our service, we power something called as Talktime Loan in telcos, especially Airtel and now Tata and all. So let's say you run out of balance, and the system can lend you a loan for 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 30 rupees, 50 rupees as an emergency credit, where you could be in the middle of night anywhere, prepaid customers obviously. And when you return back, when you recharge the next time, you charge, let's say for a 10 rupee loan, you charge 12 rupees. On a 30 rupees loan, you charge 33 rupees service charge. This entire program, this entire project is being run by us, the recovery process, the everything. And there's some almost few million loans that we give every day. And this is an example where the ARPU level of the customer is, less than 100 rupees. ARPU is average revenue per user per month. And imagine the service or the utility of this service at the bottom of the pyramid users. This is absolutely for bottom of the pyramid users who have 30 rupees balance, 20 rupees balance, even none. And it permeates across, I think in the last 24 odd months, we would have given this service to almost 50, 60 million plus customers. Africa is, while it is very huge, it is also very different, because Africa is India is pretty much like one continent. Every part of India behaves in a similar way. Africa does not. Africa is very fragmented. West is totally different. East is totally different. South is almost like Europe. But yes, to answer your question, yes, we have started. And more of such things. So this is for the bottom pyramid users. Then comes people like us, for example. Now, what do we want as a service? And what are our expectations from a service provider? So I think that is the next level of user insight that we are working on currently as we speak. Fundamentally, as I said, I'm very bullish on India. I don't think we have done enough. We've just scraped the surface barely. Next 3-4 years, there is a lot of value to be built in India. And then, as an usual expansion, you would go to any other emerging market to make it to scale. But I don't see a reason that you don't want to do that in India at all, because we've just barely started, and I'm sure we've opened up the market. We are leading this change. I'm sure there will be.
I think telecom has been one of the best growth story in India. The kind of penetration that we've had, the rapid growth with the 2Gs and 3Gs. It has also been a little murky in the last year or so because of licensing and M&A issues. But which is more of, I would say it's more of structural anomaly there. But if you see on the ground level, there is, if you just cut that piece out, forget about who wants to pay who, and let's not talk about the 3G license story and all of that scams and everything else. Minus the scam, when you're talking about systemic opportunity in terms of consumers, what has consumer got? I think nothing much, right? I mean, we are so much expectations out of our service providers, and service providers are also under a lot of stress right now because of OTT players like Google's and WhatsApp and Facebook's, who have taken a large part of that pie and trying to take the same customer, because the customer is the same. So everybody is eyeing the same wallet, same customer. So where do you differentiate? I think it's a cutthroat competition. And depending on how much information that you have on the customer and how much value can I give, how much personalized value can I give, contextual value can I give, will be the differentiator now in the times to come. So do these telecom companies view Apple's and Google's, and now they've got their own handsets as well, all of them, even Microsoft and Nokia, so companies like Airtel, do they, seriously see them as a, footbread competitors taking their spaces? But they call them frenemies. Yes, friends and enemies are the same lingo. So so I mean, it's very simple. If I were to lend if I'm a service provider and Google comes to me and say that I want to do a deal with you, I want to buy X amount of data pipe, I want to give you that money, so it will appeal to me. So you're my friend. Yeah. And at the same time, Google creates a service and says that, okay, I take away all your, because customer is the same. You become my enemy. The point is, this dual-sided business policy was very monopolistic initially, but now it's very open. So you have to see your competition and your enemy with a different lens. All the same. Earlier it was one single lens. You are either here or that. Now you are, depending on which side of the market that you play, and where is the customer going. And I think
quite candidly, you have to change your guard and position. Things have moved in the last 10, 15 years. We never had this MNP, for example, number portability. So now you can change an operator with a split second,
right,
if you are annoyed in a certain way. So I think then there is a question of net neutrality now, which has been spoken about, which is like openness of internet. So who controls internet? Nobody. So it's one of the big things then in the US that they're talking about. So whose turf is it? I think everybody is buying that thought that ultimately it's the consumer. And if you are worrying more about the consumer and leave everything else for somebody else to worry about, then you really are in the game. I think, and that has been some of the great examples of what Apple built, for example. Consumer centricity was so high on the agenda that everything else was blurred. Right? I mean, single sharp focus on what would be a wow experience is what drives some of these innovative companies.
So, looking at mCarbon's clients, so you've got a bunch of telecom companies as your clients, but you have also got big companies like Infosys and Indian Oil as your clients.
Yeah, so these are some of these enterprise customers who, again, that's a very big opportunity area. A lot of these enterprises also serve their customers, like Infosys also serves a lot of these. I mean, Infosys is a very different example, but let's say HPCL, BPCL, a lot of these banks, and they have obviously loyal set of customers. So how do you mobilize them? How do you convert them into a mobile handset? The point is the same consumer having an end device which has a smart looking phone and is data capable. How do you render information to him or her? Very simple example, banks. I think 9 out of the 10 cases still people would call up a bank and tell them and ask them what is my account balance, 10 different transactions, etc., etc. And there will be people holding on the phones for 5, 10, 20 minutes, etc. Now I think a large population can simply go to an app and press few buttons and you will get it. Or one primitive version of that was that send an SMS to that and get the information in a secured manner. I think all of that is changing. So I think some of these services, what we are building like many other, are being built for these enterprises. And these are the kind of things when they want to get into the mobile space. More from, again, they are also thinking from consumer centricity. Now, HPCL or a BPCL or a ICICI bank, for him, the consumer centricity is giving more value addition to my existing subscribers through all these means. And who will build it for them? So they will not have in-house teams. So they would outsource to people like us or many others who are trying to build services around that.
So tell us about this Green Room Network App Store. What's this all about?
So Green Room was okay. So we coined it like an app store. We thought this was app stores was like a buzzword. So we built what was an app store for telcos in that sense. So we said that okay, the concept is that when you want to put the first piece of box into a telco, you would have multiple services on that. Multiple different products could be launched on the same without addition of hardware, software, and all of that. So it helped go-to-market become much faster. It saved a lot of integration costs for a telco. So it is the same thing. You have 4 products, for example, just to give a simple analogy. Every time you go and do an integration on these 4 products with the same telco or a different telco. Now, if you put this architecture the way we constructed it, so you put the first product, second, third, and fourth as a modular thing. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So it saved a hell lot of money for them. It saved a hell lot of money in terms of go-to-market. So I think that was something which we created, and we thought this is going to be very differentiating, and it was. It proved to be a differentiator amongst all the competition that we had that existed.
Okay. So when did you get Canon Partners to invest in mCarbon?
Canon Partners, they approached us in 2008 October, and it was almost the same month when Lehman collapsed, and this whole financial, it was almost the same similar month. We started negotiating, and I think about 40 days we had the term sheet, and we got the money in early part of 2009, Jan of 2009. So we actually roughed the weather, as they say, during that time.
So was it you that approached them, or they?
Well, incidentally, the then investment partner at Canon, we were both at Nokia, and we knew each other, and he had joined Canon after Airtel and all. So they had approached us in this case.
Okay. Interesting. So, I mean, what's your take on this? I mean, are you more towards organic growth of a company, or you know, a lot of these startups, for example, Zomato is getting a lot of money, and Flipkarts are getting a lot of money, and
Valuation-based money.
Yeah, valuation.
Let me clarify that.
Right. So, I mean, is going with the organic growth a better approach than raising money like this?
See, depends. It's not a straight answer. I think as an entrepreneur, irrespective of the size of the value that you're building, both organic and inorganic plays should be weighed in a similar, you know, in the proportion that you want your business to succeed. If you think acquisition, for example, is one example of organic and inorganic, raising money is second example. I think by far, whenever you have an opportunity to raise money, external money, you should raise it, because ultimately, if you're building large value, giving some value out to an investor is not a bad idea. My word of advice is choose the investor carefully. In that sense, they should really build value with you as you go along, not just give money. I think money is available, but the kind of investment that you're seeking from them, the kind of help that you're seeking, that should be available. If you do not have a great amount of mentors available or that support ecosystem available, then it becomes a little cagey, you know, raising money purely from a money point of view. You should, you know, think about those aspects. I think a lot of businesses die because of want of money in the right time. Actually, money raised beyond the time when I think the opportunity is lost is also no use. And many people are also cagey about raising money, but at the same time, the money at the earlier stage is not also available. All said and done, it's not very easy to raise. Series A's are already hardly happening in India these days. Very few, I would say. There is angel ecosystem or this pre-Series A ecosystem, which is now started to look up, but still, a lot has to be done. It is still not Silicon Valley by any measure. If you're thinking that we've managed to create a Silicon Valley here, no, we still are many years, because even the investors have a very cautionary approach towards some of these ideas and things. They're not like, okay, take a whatever check, half a crore or 2 crore check and just do whatever you want to do, which is, I think, as a DNA more prevalent in the Valley. They're more risk averse in that sense, both sides of the story. Here it's a bit cautionary. I think more successes would change the story, which brings me back to the earlier point of the quality of entrepreneurs. Many entrepreneurs would think that, okay, it's so cool to do it, let me just check it. And what is the next step in my checklist? Oh, I need to raise funds. So I'll go and talk to 5 VCs and say, okay, fine, you know, I don't really see a value here. I don't see a scale. I don't see, because you can't tell a VC that, you know, this is only a 2-year thing, you know, I want to sell and then we'll want to make money. You will make money, I'll make money. That sort of gives them real jitters. So we're talking about building value and along the line, because that's how the whole venture ecosystem dynamics are. I mean, there's no shortcut there. So I think if we fall in that premise, then money will follow you, and you don't have to. And then they look at the team, they look at the sustainability, your tenacity as a person, and passion as an entrepreneur. So it's not about raising money; it is about selling, because you're doing pretty much everything: acquiring your first customer, acquiring your first employee, keeping them well entrenched, keeping them motivated, year after year after year. It's a whole hog, right? And it's a 5, 6, 7 year journey. And along the line, some people get lucky and some people get acquired. And I think one should be very open to, as an entrepreneur, very open to organic as well as inorganic ways of growing business. I think there are no shortcuts here. This is very, very fundamentally very clear. I think 1 in a million things work on a shortcut basis. You can't, that's like no success rate, right? I mean, I don't know if I'm on that elusive idea or not, but most of the times it's sheer hard work and tenacity.
But when you started, you were there for the long haul, not just to.
Yeah, I mean, 6 years, going strong, and going strong or not, I think the point is we don't want to look back. We do mistakes, learn them, learn from them, reinvent ourselves, unlearn them as well. Because business models are changing, it's very dynamic, right? I mean, I can't say that I'm an expert in all the fields. I thought that when I started, I was maybe 32, 33, and I thought, okay, great. But then came Facebook, then came Zuckerberg, who started at 24, 25. So whole dynamics have changed, right? I mean, so you can't be resting on your laurels saying that, okay, guys, I've arrived in life. And then even when you do your first entrepreneurial stint, right now the state of mind, particularly I am in, is I get goosebumps looking at other opportunities. So much of opportunities to be around. So the point is that let's do one, consummate it, move to another, create more value, give it back. Also, I think that is a very important aspect. That how do we give it back to the people where we came from? It is not about just making money. It's also about making change,
right,
and making real change on the ground.
So you don't really plan to sell off mCarbon or anything like that?
I mean, I don't know if there are any buyers out there, but it's always welcome. I mean, see, again, it's a question, what do we do after that? It's a sense of responsibility. Am I really looking? Yeah, I mean, so there are two ways to answer this question. Our investors, whether it is Canon right now or somebody else later, they would want an exit. They would want a return on investment. So I think at this stage, I would like to believe ideally, if the ecosystem supports us, we would like to go maybe public and move along that line and see if we can do that. Because there haven't been many success stories like that. There haven't been many great product companies from India. We're talking about India, right? We're not sitting in Silicon Valley and talking cock and bull story here. So, yeah.
So, I think we asked you about the overseas market. So, you've actually started to venture out into Africa now.
Not just Africa. We've started Africa, but we're already live in Bangladesh because that is very close to us, has a large addressable base of people. We also live in Sri Lanka, which is small. But yeah, Africa as a continent, big. But at the same time, that's pretty much emerging markets and have similar sensibilities as Indian consumers is something which we are keen on right now. We haven't made any major strides in terms of our products for the developed markets yet. But that is yet. I mean, we don't know how this whole unfolds. 6 months down the line, we hit upon a product which we think has potential to be sold in the West. Then yes.
So, but your foray into developing countries, is it more to do with diversifying your portfolio or?
I think diversifying consumer base, one, and second, scale. I think simply scale, and that also sort of from a business standpoint also hedges you in a way against market pressures, economic conditions, financial stability in that sense. And it's good to have, and the point is again the same value. If you can, because I would imagine that Indian sensibilities would be a bit different than what people are in Africa. There are different challenges, there are different opportunities. And if you are creating, and what we are creating is more product-driven approach. We have certain IPRs that we are trying to build. And if you have made an IPR, then let the world discover it, and why restrict it? That's the point.
Because there's another thought that the ecosystem, especially the political sphere, it's very unstable in India. So that's why a lot of companies want to have some sort of presence outside India as well.
I mean, I wouldn't put it purely on a political instability factor point. I think the only thing for a company like us or many companies like who are in this space is, I don't think we are really bothered about a lot of political instability. Only unless we feel that there was a foreign direct infusion of funds that was supposed to happen, and that whole thing has really made it a bit slow. But yeah, I think what it does affect is the overall investment sentiment. So it does affect that. I think there should be a little bit of a euphoria where people are less cautionary in their approach of the way they are approaching a sector. So it is more of sector agnostic. It's not about purely telecom or IT or ICT or whatever or TMT. It is about that, as a large India specific fund, if you look at a large PE fund who spend billions of dollars into India via different LPs and VCs, etc., they should see political stability there so that their return on investment by terms of good amenable policies, etc. So their money investment and the returns that they expect out of India as an investment destination comes out clear. There should not be any blurred picture being shown there. So everything else flows in, but that's the money part of it. If you ignore the money part of it and you say that, okay, I am not really bothered about the money piece, let me generate money through internal accruals, through revenue, then yes, then then we are talking about I provide a service to you and you pay me directly. There is no fund coming in, those are two points of thoughts. So when you're looking at large, there is a lot of valuation kind of story being built, money being, then you're saying that, okay, fine, if I put 200 million into a company, then I need to get a valuation upwards of $1 billion, then only we are talking some sense. Otherwise, you can make micro businesses. I think 50, 100 crore businesses, 200 crore businesses in India, there are so many opportunities to build if you are smart, clearly. But that is a lot of hard work for sure. It's not easy.
So where do you see the opportunity in the telecom industry space, especially in India? Is it the rural sector you see, or there's still scope in the urban sector?
Oh, there is scope in the urban sector from a services standpoint. I was mentioning that in terms of what we consume as consumers, very little has been done. Whether you call it value addition or value added services in any space, whether it is payments, whether it is consuming piece of content, consuming a utility based services, there is value to be had in urban. There is clearly value to be had in rural for sure, because of the basic disconnection of sorts, if I may call it. They don't have anything. Once you give them a phone which is connected with a high speed data network, then I think the transition which urban population has taken from voice, SMS, they will straight away go to video, for example. All you need is a very fat pipe coming into that particular village hub or small town hub, and the cost of smartphone coming down to 5,000 rupees, for example. And prices in India, I think, let's face it, are definitely at very, very low end of the spectrum. This is one of the cheapest countries as far as the cost of telecom services is concerned. Very clearly, I think the kind of margins, because they have volume, so they stack up on that. The margins, if you see, are very, very low. So there is a lot of value and propensity to pay. I think there is no doubt that propensity to pay on a certain value added services exists, provided you expose them to that value and give them that value, they will pay.
So are you bullish more on the internet space or on the mobile based services base?
I am bullish on the internet space primarily because, and how do you consume internet? Many people consume internet today by mobile as the first instance. So naturally mobile or a smartphone in that sense becomes like your main device. It's like your new identity. I don't see many places where we graduated, like most of us graduated from building PCs and then morphing into mobile. Yeah. But we did have an internet connection. We did have that PPTP, clunky looking phones, as well as that VSNL connection, which would give us some internet. We graduated in that sense. They were multi-staged graduation. But today, a simple guy who can afford 3,000-4,000 rupee phone takes a data pack for $100, $50, goes on Google, goes on video, streams everything, sees songs, irrespective of who the guy is.
Yeah, and now we're sort of moving towards watches and.
That's very, I would say, aspirational still. That will not cut any major, but that's more of esoteric value. But if you say we're talking about real value, people, what they will consume, how they will consume, what will they spend. They will spend on all these services, whether you watch a movie clip, whether you are on Facebook, whether you are connected, whether you need money, whether you need a service, marketplaces, for example, people buying from each other. So it's like consumer, it's C to C, consumer to consumer. That area is yet to be explored. And technology will be an enabler. I think that is a fundamental shift, and that is where value is. Now technology, when you see technology as an enabler, then it is a question of technology can be a mobile technology or a broadband DSL, Wi-Fi, whatever, 3G, 4G. For an end customer, these are acronyms. They don't really care what 3G, 4G is. They're saying, give me a connection, I can watch, I can do this particular transaction, and yeah, that is value for me. I'm willing to pay 30, 40, 50, 100 bucks.
So is mCarbon focused on entering into new technologies as well? Are they building new technology, or are they just focused on building products using existing technology?
No, so I think one technology, as we all know, it changes at the speed of light. I mean, so we view technology as an enabler all the time. So we see that if we have already demonstrated and done that many times over, but yeah, we are, our eyes and ears are always open in terms of what is the best and the shortest way, simplified way of connecting with the customer. Whatever technology enables in a cost efficient way, obviously. The cost of technology cannot be very high of service. So you have to find a midpoint and then change and take that technology enabler as your forte. So we keep doing it all the time. I mean, even if we don't want to do that, the ecosystem won't allow us to stand still. The competition will throw us out of gear, or situation will throw us out of gear. It's so dynamic.
Okay, tell us about your partner. So, I mean, you told us that you met him in Bharti Tele. So, what sort of, we understand that it's very important to have the right partner. I mean, it's one of the most important decisions that as an entrepreneur you're supposed to take. So, what got you to choose Bridge as your co-founder?
So, Bridge currently has quit. I mean, he's not a co-founder anymore. After 5-6 years, he wanted to pursue some other things. He's actually mentoring a few other startups as we speak. But yeah, I mean, what did we see in each other 5 years ago? I think we were complementary skills. He was a technology architect, and I was more sales oriented. So I think we had complementary skills, and the basic DNA also matched in that sense that both of us agreed at certain point that we want to do it together and we want to make it big. So I think bringing back to the question of, now if you ask me whether you really should have a co-founder or not, I think it's not mandatory, but at the same time it sort of complements you in a certain way. So ideally, if you can have, you should have. Now if the question is how many you should you have 2 or 3 or 4? I think 2 is obviously bare minimum, so that obviously then only you can call a partner. It also helps to have a contrary viewpoint sometimes. You may be in your own scheme of things wanting to take a decision, the other guy can actually help be a devil's advocate, and vice versa. So whether it is a 2 or a 3 or 4 number, that is immaterial. When you start early on, I think again this is based on my experience, and I mentor a lot of these startups, and we keep people ask me such questions. How do you choose the right partner? And I think initially, let's say 2 friends decide that they all want to do together something. So it is more on the gut right now that people can come together and start. But I think as you grow, it is very important for the founders as well as co-founders to take that with a pinch of salt, each other's capabilities and what their actual specialities are. Because it should not happen for many founders, co-founders that I started the company and I can't let it go. For example, when you are in many years of operation, sometimes there is a decision of getting an external CEO, external COO, and if you are a product expert, for example, Google is the biggest example, right, at a large scale when Eric was running it, and both of these guys, Larry and Sergey, were product specialists or whatever. So I think it's very important to let go of that situation that, now this is a stage where we need a certain expert and we want to cull out space for him or her. One should do that. I think that emotional thing, I created, so hence everything should be dictated by me, is wrong premise. That is where some of these fundamental things also take a back seat, where people think, what the hell, I created this company and I can't give my space out. I think that is a very important question as you build scale. If you feel that, I'm not the right guy suited for this kind of job, I have to relinquish that space and let other better person run it for that role. So I think it is always that role, because you create it and there is space. The founders may be capable of running the company at, let's say, $100 million. Beyond that, is this a question of scale? You know, you may not have that kind of experience. So you would rather hire a guy who has been in that shoes and done that, because ultimately then you're building a lot of shareholder value for your employees, for if you're public, then for people. You can't be shortchanged there saying that, you know, everything, let me just grab this territory. So I think that is that fundamental question of judging each other's capabilities, not that I like your face and you're my best friend, so you have to be my co-founder because you're my best friend. What do you really bring to the table? Which is important for the success of the business, is how co-founders should be viewed, besides friendship and other stuff.
So did you ever feel like quitting in the 7 years, 7 years?
No. Honest answer is no, because
you actually quit.
very difficult. No,
Yeah.
I think the answer is no. I think the reason is very simple. So I mean, we've had, so irrespective of the end result, irrespective of the look, irrespective of looking at the balance sheet, whether you're profitable or not profitable. Personally, I don't feel like quitting, because I feel we've just got started and we haven't really, there is so much to do. So quitting completely and doing what? So for example, yeah, fundamentally, you know, I could, for example, I still, whenever I have time and all, mentor a lot of people and share whatever knowledge or whatever good and bad things that I've learned over the last 6 years as an entrepreneur, and share so that people don't want to do the same mistakes again. But yeah, I mean, quitting a particular business, I think the good answer is that if you made certain milestones, if you are in the middle of that, it's like, can you quit a marathon? Would you ever want to quit a marathon? I would say no. I mean, at least reach the finishing line first, and define that finishing line. That finishing line can be very different for many people. Let's say, in our case, the finishing line could be going public, for example, or going to a revenue of 300, 400 crores. Then is a logical benchmark. Then this question is more relevant. Yeah, I mean, it's been, I've reached that milestone. I can, or anybody else can still say, no, I want to take the next milestone. I think while you're running and in the race, there's no question of quitting.
But you never faced a situation where, you know, you thought, okay, nothing is working out. Or, for example, Make My Trip, you know, they had like a couple of years where things were really bad for them, and then, but they just kept on.
I think it comes all the time. When you're small, Make My Trip is again a big example. Now it's gone public and all of that. But I think in our case also, these situations come, this journey is fraught with such situations. Whether they came 2 years ago, they came a few months ago, they will come after 6 months or 8 months, you never know. I think, but we are ready, because the point is, it's like a roller coaster. One thing we have realized, that this is a roller coaster. There will be crests and troughs. You will have those thrills of going down and going up again. So it is cyclical for sure, if your fundamentals are strong. If you're shot in your own foot, then nothing can go wrong. Times might change, somebody can leave and come and all of that. But if you're building intrinsic value, then you know, these are good and bad times both. You live with those.
Cool. So what's your take on India's entrepreneur ecosystem? Because a lot of the speakers that, you know, we've had this, they've actually told us that, you know, there is money available, but there's dearth of ideas actually.
There are a lot of ideas. I mean, I get a lot of ideas as you know, in my current state. But beyond ideas, what possibly it lacks is the execution capabilities of those ideas. Now, ideas can be anything, right? I mean, it comes and people, if we, you know, 15 of us can give each ourselves 30 minutes time and go to each room and saying, you have to come out with an idea after 30 minutes. I'm sure everybody will have some idea or not. Whether that is a common idea or not a common idea, you're given a task, your mind is conditioned to think like, you know, okay, I have to be an entrepreneur. Okay, yes, I will become an entrepreneur. I have to now think of an idea. Yes, let me just go to that room and think about an idea. So I think that is not what is key. It is about how that idea translates into an execution plan, is where most of the people falter. So that execution plan is which entails the business plan in a say. Then it comes that, okay, how big that can become, is it really value, who will I sell it to, it is sellable, forget about raising money and all. imagine that you have money, but you have to sell, you have to hire people, you have to do a lot of things. That ecosystem needs a lot of push. I think that is where, when you mentioned, a lot of people say, I agree that you need a lot of help. I also feel that you need a lot of help in mentoring a lot of these startups, initials. People, I think that piece is missing. And if I was a fresh entrepreneur and there will be help available to me, and even I have to let go of certain equity to take that help, I would take it from real entrepreneurs who have done something in the past and who have lived through that. Some of these things, I mean, you can't build businesses by reading books,
right,
and all those self-help books and management gyans, etc. This is real business, right? I mean, this is real stuff. This is really story. You're hiring, you're writing, you're selling, you're collecting. This is value. This is no valuation. So I think it is an exciting time for India's entrepreneurial ecosystem. There is a lot of clutter, and value needs to be taken out from that clutter. I think that is also because of, as I said, the whole education system, the exposure that some of us have got in the last few years by virtue of few companies going public, by virtue of few companies getting sold at the very early stages. So that will thrive more ideas, more people to come out and do it. So I think it is an exciting time, net for the whole ecosystem, and it will continue for some time.
In terms of India, I think Bangalore is the best place right now in terms of the ecosystem.
I would, on the contrary, feel I see no reason why Delhi NCR is not a good place. Bombay for sure has lost its sheen a little bit. Bangalore, I don't know why, because of IT and all of that. But I mean, I see no reason why the whole Delhi NCR corridor cannot be a major hub. I mean, technically there's nothing wrong with our brains, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong here. I don't need to Bangalore to make a business plan. I mean, I can think here and
But Delhi, you mostly find real estate entrepreneurs.
So entrepreneurs is an entrepreneur. I mean, you could be a restaurateur and start a business. But I mean, if you're building a technology business, then yeah, because of the supply of talent is what Bangalore is. But you can have a think tank here and execution in Bangalore. Why not? Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of days we were just reading an article in ET which said a lot of entrepreneurs are now based out of Goa. I mean, so it's the best thing, depending what kind of business you want to build. I think if I'm making a consumer company brand, I don't mind sitting in Goa with 10, 20, 30 great engineers and sipping beer and making apps and coding.
There's this one company we're working with, they're based out of Kullu Valley, and their company's name is Kullu Valley.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, but I think real value, real conversion in terms of getting traction, getting funding, scaling up, we will see. But this area will have a lot of action. And that's why you've seen a lot of these incubators come in.
Yeah.
A lot of these things are coming up. That will throw up accelerators, incubators, whatever you may call it. Which is good, I think it is available. So I mean, if there are 1,000 entrepreneurs, you also need at least 100 of these, so that more personalized attention is given. Because education system does not teach you how to build companies very clearly. So you have to look beyond education system. You have to look at the environment and possibilities thereof.
So when you mentor startups, what sort of arrangement do you have with them? Do you take some sort of equity from them?
I mean, I haven't commercialized it. It's purely pro bono help. I mean, yeah. I mean, because my time is taken by mCarbon completely. So it's like only largely in spare time and whatever help that I could do. I haven't really thought of making that as a business right now.
Okay guys, I am done with my questions, so I'll open the round for questions.
Was it a partnership firm or a company? What legal difficulties you face in funding building? What if you and your partner only put 6 lakhs?
Interesting question. We had a similar situation.